Hey there. How you doing? What do you think? Pretty neat, huh? Costs nothing. Made from trash. You wanna see how? Check out the rest of the video. To get started, we'll need a couple of empty drink cans. I like a utility knife like this, but a box cutter, hobby knife, or whatever you have will work. Setting the tip in the groove, I carefully spin the can while pressing down with the knife, not to cut through in one go, but score a line where the aluminum will snap off later. With a small pair of scissors like these cuticle scissors from the dollar store, I go in and cut the top into 4 sections. Removing the whole thing as a disc is very difficult, but this way I can just reach in, work the pieces back and forth a bit, and get them to snap off cleanly. I'll make my pattern available to print out and use on your own. I made mine by taking a separate can, cutting it to the rough size, and test fitting it over my face as I snipped and sanded away material until I liked the fit. Then I transferred it to this piece of styrene so I could repeat the design over and over for both sides. I tape the pattern in place and line it up with the rim of the can before tracing around it with my marker. I've included the points where holes need to be made, through which the straps will mount later, and make sure they are clearly marked. Using something pointy, in this case a pick, I center punched those holes I was so careful to mark out. Since the material is so thin, I like to grab a set of these hex shank bits and drill out the holes by hand. Before I cut into the wall of the can, I like to save the bases for other things. This 1/8" piece of material under my knife gives me a dish that will lie flat when it's cut free. Since we're not using it for this project, you could just make an extra hole to start with your scissors. Again, I'm just scoring a line, not trying to cut through. The material should just shear off along that line with just a bit of manipulation, but do be careful if you try this. Those edges can be very sharp. With my ordinary multi-purpose scissors, I come in from the end and make a rough cut wide of the line. I found that when I tried to cut the final shape right away, the waste material kept me from following the line accurately and got messed up itself in the process. Since we'll make use of this sheet later, the extra step is worth it. With the same cuticle scissors, I then go in and follow the line from the pattern. When I get down to the smaller hole for the nose bridge though, I do go wide by a little bit to make sure there's enough material later. Lots of sanding is up next. Take a bit of sandpaper, this is 220 grit, and knock off any burrs and sharp edges before removing all the printing from the outside. Give them a quick rattle can black and let them dry. My cat Buddy prefers canned food, so I wind up with a lot of these peel off lids and find that the pull tabs are a great size for this project. I remove them from the lids by drilling out the riveted over piece of material so that they don't lose the round hole I'll reuse to mount them. For this design, I'll collect 4 of them so 2 can make a clasp, but if you just want to size the elastic strap to your own head, you'll only need 2. I also gather 2 soda tabs and a pair of thumbtacks that all get the rattle can treatment as well. With all that drying outside, let's get some lens material ready. In the intro, I showed off some other options that require special materials or tools not everyone may have. For the purple, I used a hole saw on my drill press. The shiny reflective material came from insulated mailers, and the green were cut from the plastic jars of a particular brand of hand cream. I saved a bunch of these prescription bottles because I like the color and figured there's something most people might have on hand. Getting the plastic to flatten was a challenge though. Inspiration finally found me one day and I devised this simple method. Start by getting the label off, pull carefully against, not away from, the curve of the bottle to get as much off as possible. Then take a piece of masking tape to pull off any remaining residue. I carefully score a line with my utility knife before shearing off the top and bottom, then cut the tube into 2 halves. With a piece of parchment paper to protect my tabletop, I set my iron to the highest setting that doesn't produce steam, and remember that piece of can we set aside? I use that between the plastic and my iron to protect both. I press down for a moment, then put some weights on top to let the now flat lens blank cool. With a spare can and some masking tape, I make a couple of templates for the lenses. I make sure to get underneath the rim and cut a little wide of the line so that the lenses are just a little bit bigger than the bezel so that they can be glued in place. This plastic is so soft that I can cut it with regular scissors. There are some blemishes on the plastic, so I place my templates to avoid including them in the final product. Before I set the lenses in place, I take 2 half-inch strips off a sheet of craft foam, the same kind of 16-inch stuff you find in the kids' craft section. I mark it at 1/4 inch with a groove made with a pencil or pen and cut it with a hobby knife at 1/2 inch. Making sure to start where the seam won't line up with the hole for the nose bridge, I glue about an inch or so at a time all the way around. I use that groove to indicate where to place the glue and line up the strip with the edge of the can. Super glue is great in this application as the foam really soaks it up and it bonds almost instantly. When I get all the way around and find I have extra material, I line the pieces up and make a mark with my pencil. I cut a little wide of the mark and glue the ends together. Since these aren't 100% flat, I set them so that the curve points inward and press the middle down with my thumb. You can use anything you have, especially if you use a material that doesn't need to be pressed into shape, but I recommend staying away from super glue for this, as I found it fogs the lenses over time. Because they will have to be held in place like this while the glue sets, I found hot glue works best. Working in sections, I fold the foot in on my hot glue gun so I can get the nozzle all the way down inside against the edge of the lens. I make sure to squeeze the glue down all the way around the edge so it grabs around the lens like a gasket. Be very careful not to burn yourself if you try this. If you get glue on the lens where you don't want it, rubbing alcohol will get it off. This is the siphon tube from a bottle of face wash that came with a hand pump dispenser. To make a rivet with which to mount the tabs that will attach the strap to the can, I start by using my hot glue gun to warm up the end. It only takes a moment to get soft, then I just smash it over on the table to make a flange. With my hobby knife, I cut it off with about a 1/4 inch of material and make another for the other side. I chose this tube because it's the same size as the hole already in the pull tabs. I put the rivet through the tab and the can and grab one of those foam scraps to hold it all in place. Again with my glue gun, I heat the end of the rivet and smash it over to lock it all in place. I use my bare hands, but another foam scrap could easily be employed against the heat. To really make this arrangement look slick, I fill the center of the rivet with hot glue, backing it with some masking tape scraps. Then I press one of those thumbtacks I painted through the center and nip off the end with a pair of diagonal cutters. A final dab of hot glue covers the nasty end and it looks like a metal fastener from the outside. To clear the foam away from the hole for the nose bridge, I use my revolving hole punch, but you can use whatever you have. A hobby knife, that same drill bit, or just poke it with something sharp. So long as the elastic will pass through, it's fine. In the spirit of reusing as much material as possible, I used an old broken hair tie to good effect on my prototype. Later I found that I had this elastic from a previous project that's the same gauge and started using that instead. To make the nose bridge, I simply pulled the elastic through both holes on the cans, out one and in the other, and tied a knot to secure it. Leaving about a quarter inch in between, I then knotted and trimmed away the excess on the other side. At this point, I'm several iterations deep on the design, so I'm making the most complex version of the head strap for you all on camera. Do you make your own at home, you can significantly simplify the arrangement to suit your available tools, materials, and skill level. I'm even only bothering to stitch mine because I had the sewing machine set up from a different project. With this arrangement, you can adjust your goggles to fit over any number of accessories, as well as take them on and off without disturbing everything else you've got on. Twice, I cut about 12.5 inches of elastic and stitched one of the extra pull tabs to it with a loop. Then I feed the loose end into one end of the soda tab, through the pull tab attached to the goggles, and back through the other hole of the soda tab. As I do this, I make sure that one of the clasps faces in and the other out so they can interlock. As I do this, I make sure that one of the clasp tabs faces in and the other out so they can interlock. A small adjustment to get them to fit together, and my goggles are done. I've made a bunch of these now, so if you'd like a pair without having to make your own, I'm going to post them in my Etsy shop. It's also a way to support me getting started while getting something for yourself. Here's a slideshow of some of the looks I did with mine. for watching.